Welcome to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
This episode is brought to you by Latin Excellence. Visit latinexcellence.com. That's Latinx, CELLENCE.com or latinxmovement.com to learn more and shop our merchandise. You are excellence. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth. My name is Luis, and I'm your host. I have a very special guest, my brother from another. His name is Mac Gardner. He has been in the financial services industry over 20 years. He's a speaker, an author, certified financial planner, founder of FinLit Tech, which you're going to hear about very shortly, and also an award-winning financial planner. So I'm super excited to have him on the show today. Thank you very much, and welcome, Mac.
Louis, thank you so much for having me. I am a big fan of your work and the work that you are doing to bring more diversity, equity, and inclusion into this business. So whenever there's an opportunity to sit down and chop it up with your brother, I welcome it.
Yeah, much appreciated, man. And speaking of which, congratulations on your most recent award, the Be at Sea a Role Model from Investment News.
Thank you. Yeah, We've been pushing this broom, this financial education for young people for some time, and we published the 4 Money Bears book over 5 years ago. And so when we were notified of the news of that Investment News CFP award, I literally, I broke down a bit, man. I was on the verge of tears because to be recognized for the work that we're doing and really try to make an impact in the lives of families, young kids, it felt great.
Well deserved, man. And I love what you always say. You're always signing off with the journey continues.
The journey continues. It's a long one, man. People don't realize it. We realize because we're in this chair, we're financial advisors, financial planners. We realize that the financial life journey is a long one, and that you fall into people's lives at different stages of their journey. And so that's why I always say the journey continues, because it is a long one, and it's
not cool one and done. Yeah, I love that.
It's not.
I love that. So I want to hear for our audience, if you can tell us about your background, like how did you get to where you are today? Like if you can share some of your trajectory in the financial services industry, like what happened in those 20 plus years?
Man, how much time we got for this, Louis? This is no.
I know, right? Give me the highlights.
Highlights. Okay, so I started off my career in 1996 as a bank teller. I University of Maryland. Graduated in 98. And when I did graduate, one of my colleagues gave me an opportunity to join the trust division. And that's really where my eyes opened up, man, to how wealth is perpetuated in the United States of America. I tell a story. We were doing a trust accounting, and this woman in her 80s, trust accountings, for those of you out there who are in this space, know they are terrible. I dislike trust accountings greatly, but it's a necessary evil. And she had DuPont stock, Louis, with a cost basis of $1.50.
Whoa.
Do you know how long you had to have owned DuPont stock to have a cost basis of $1.50? She didn't buy that, right? She didn't buy that. That was bought generations ago and passed on to her through trusts and all those things.
Wow.
So that's really what opened my eyes to wealth. I had an opportunity to go through a management training program for SunTrust, commercial and corporate lending, did that for a number of years. And then I got my Series 7, 66 in the late 90s, early 2000s, just in time for the dot-com bust. And then moved on, became a bank advisor, spent time as an advanced markets wholesaler, managed USAA, TIA's wealth management groups, had my own practice with Raymond James. And that's when I really started writing and started really taking a focus on educating folks and educating people about their money.
Yeah. And what gave birth to that initially, that you decided, you know what, I need to get this word out of financial literacy?
So I found it amazing that I would be working with people that are literal millionaires that had very little knowledge about money or finances or financial planning or any of this stuff. Like the difference between a qualified and a non-qualified account, the difference between an IRA versus 401k, term versus permanent, stuff that, we take for granted because we're in this business. Folks really had very, very little knowledge. And so my first book, Motivate Your Money, I don't know if it's going to be on video or not, but I just held it up for those who can see. I wrote that to share my experiences because I'm been blessed to wear so many different hats in personal finance, right? Lending, banking, investing, insurance, qualified plans, to really help clients and break down things to what I call Mcnuggets. One of the best compliments you can ever get as an advisor is if someone says, "Hey, Mac, you make this stuff easy to understand. You're trying to talk over our head." So that's how the first book came about. The second book came about because one of my clients was on the board of an organization called Jack and Jill, non-for-profit in Houston. And she said, "Mac, love the first book. Would you be open to writing a book for kids?" And so that's how the Four Money Bears book came to be.
Gotcha. Awesome. And I know you use some of the content from your book to kind of create, right, like the Four Money Bears. And I love that concept. And I understand you have 2 male, 2 female, and then different shades, right, of color as well.
Yeah. So my first book, I talk about the 5 steps to financial success. Again, trying to break things down for people, right? First, you got to have a plan. That's step 1, some sort of financial plan, sort of budget. Second, spend cautiously. Third, save diligently. 4, invest wisely. And 5, give generously. And what was happening, Louis, was that the people that I had been working with all these years, right, they had been doing these things, but didn't really realize it. And so I was like, oh, okay, there's actually some sort of formula for this. So when we looked at the Four Money Bears book and we're looking at engaging elementary school kids, we wanted to take those 4 functions of money, right? Spending, saving, investing, and giving, but make it something where a kid could understand and relate to it. And so we said, okay, we got these 4 bears, kids love bears. We wanted to make sure that there was representation, right? You had girl bears, you had boy bears, you had diverse colors of these characters, because we need more diversity, more equity, more inclusion, not just in the education space, but in the financial services industry too. So that's really was the not so subtle nod towards more DEI through the Four Money Bears book.
Yeah, I love that. And the fact that you were able to break it down to a level where it's so simple, where a kid can understand, I mean, it can't get any better than that.
Again, what was it, Einstein that said it? If you can't explain it simply, you do not know it well enough, right? And when you're talking to a kid, and we haven't even started talking about how the relationship with money and the fact that, a child first gets money, and I call it the 3 R's. They realize what it is. Hey, this is money. The second R is they recognize what it does. Okay, I know I can buy things with this, or I can put it in my piggy bank. Then the third R, you start to rationalize, right? So you realize what it is, you recognize what it does, then you start rationalizing what to do with it. But if you only are aware of 2 of the 4 functions, that limits your rationalization on how this tool can work for you. And so that's the other thing that we wanted to do with this Four Money Bears book, is to not just tell kids what the 4 functions are, but to remind them, because they've been conditioned to just spend and save, that you do have other options. And when they all work together and form a budget, really cool things can happen down the road.
Yeah, that is so funny. It reminds me of a story. One of my sisters went out with one of her kids, and they were somewhere, some sort of store, and the kid wanted something. And my sister was like, oh, like I can't really afford it. I don't have money for that, right? Or something like that. And my niece was like, oh, why don't you just use your card? Because, there were like, all she knew was that this magical plastic just came out of her mom's purse, and you were able to just buy whatever you wanted. Like there was no, she didn't have the concept behind, you got to work, and then there's money behind that card, right?
Yeah. But Louis, I love the fact that you mentioned that story. I was presenting at a conference for eMoney a few years ago, and talking to advisors across the country about how they incorporate, if they incorporate financial education in their practice. And one of the advisors, I wish I remember her name, shared a magical nugget when it comes to how she coaches and trains her children to talk about money in those situations. She says she doesn't tell her children they can't afford it. She tells them, we choose not to spend our money this way.
Powerful.
Right? It's a choice. We have a choice. It's not that we can't afford it, because it's funny. The whole Four Money Bears book, if folks read it, they will see it's the story of me and my wife teaching our 3 kids about money. And if if you're blessed to have children and you're blessed to be able to take them to the store, or whatever that may be on the weekends, they run off to the toy store, the toy section, right? That's the first thing. They're in the toy section and they're gone. And so it's literally me sitting with my kids saying, hey, you know what? Let's level set this here. What do you know what your options are with money? And most kids will say they know they can spend it, they know they can save it, but they have no idea about this concept of investing. And giving to them is not really is a foreign concept, not as natural. And so that's what we want to do, is to give kids this opportunity at a very early, and some adults too, that you have these choices, and those choices can be very powerful and can lead to really good things down the road, or not so good things.
Yeah, I think that is so powerful, because the earlier you can grasp those concepts and develop behaviors too, the better you'll be as an adult. Because I remember I thought to myself, asking people, what would you do if you won the lotto, right? And I just did this as an experiment in conversation with friends and family, right? And most people just went about telling me how they would spend their money. You know, I will buy this house and this car and go on this trip. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that, right? Obviously, you got to enjoy yourself. But hardly anybody ever went beyond that and say, well, here's how else I would impact others' lives, and maybe donate X to charity, or invest this much and buy this business or whatever. So it was very interesting to me how, and it might have just been a function of how we grew up, where money was more like something that came and went very quickly. When I was growing up, it was a thing of, it was a tool, but it was also, there was a scarcity issue as well, right? It wasn't like, I didn't know anybody that just accumulated tons of money, right? It was always enough.
Where those conversations led to those types of ideas or ideals. I understand. Yeah, dude, from the Caribbean, my dad is from Antigua, my mom is from Haiti, and, grew up in abject poverty. But education in their minds was a way to move forward and get better. And so it's so funny you say this. I talk about the fact that all we are at the end of our days, Luis, is a collection of stories. So that's all we are. We go through life hearing and sharing stories. And if you came up through a culture or in a community or society where there is this scarcity of resources and scarcity of money, and you don't have folks that are investing on a regular basis and talking about stocks and bonds and how they're growing their business, so on and so forth, these kids won't ever get it. And so that's really what we want the whole For Money Bears book to be able to serve as, is a resource for these parents who want to start talking to their kids about it, right? But just never got it themselves to be able to start the conversation. And that's how Finlit Tech started, was because everyone came to us and said, hey, Mac, we love the book. We have sales in France, Germany, England, Canada. I never thought that would ever happen when I first published it. But everyone's like, children are learning differently. They're learning digitally. They're learning on devices. They're doing things on phones, on iPad, And so that's when we looked at the space and saw that there's a bunch of tech out there that's being built to do stuff with your money, but not a lot of stuff is actually being created to help teach you what to do with your money. And so in our minds, the For Money Bears Berryville app that we're developing is a child's on-ramp to their digital financial education journey.
Yeah. I love how you talk about stories and being like what we are at the end of the day, right? And I know a lot of parents that they didn't have a lot growing up. So I've seen two different mentalities that come from that. One is, well, I want to give my children everything I didn't have, right? And the other one is, well, I didn't have anything growing up and neither should they. They should go get it on their own. But I love how you say about stories, because I feel like if we teach our kids young enough, we can pass down those nuggets, right, of knowledge about personal finance and how they themselves can then use that. I feel like we can also help close the wealth gap as well, because every generation doesn't have to start from scratch.
Bro, so this is what we envision. Imagine, okay, step back. I would do this thing called the $100 bill challenge. I would literally go into elementary schools. And I was like, how am I going to get these little elementary schools kids' attention? I keep a $100 bill in my pocket, in my wallet. So I said, this is what I'll do. I'll take this $100 bill and I'll ask them, they're like, ooh, $100 bill, ooh, ooh's nice. And I'll ask them, if I gave you this $100 bill, what would you do with it? And of course, hands start flying. I'm buying shoes, Pokemon, candy, all kinds of stuff. And it became an experiment to show, to our point about consumption and how we're conditioned to consume. In fact, the first habit a child picks up is their parents' spending habit. So imagine this, Louis. Imagine in an underserved, overlooked community where these conversations aren't being had. You drop a game into this community, and this kid at 5, 6, 7 years old is playing this farming game, and they're learning about how to make money, and they're learning about their 4 options of money. And now all of a sudden, when they get money for a birthday, it's like, okay, I've got these 4 options. Hey, mom, dad, instead of blowing this $100 bill on some Nikes, let's buy something for $50, right? And let's buy $50 worth of Nike stock.
Game changer.
Dude, total game changer, because this child now understands that they've got these options. And what's even cooler about it, Louis, is that the time that we live in, there's a formula to financial wellness. There's financial literacy. There's tons of it out there. You go on Google, you can find gobs of information, financial literacy. But you need the financial capability of the technology. You need that to be able to have the knowledge be converted into actual acts and actions. That's what gets the financial wellness. So now, because we're living in this digital age and fintech is exploding, there are tools and resources that allow a parent to buy $5 worth of Nike, buy $5 worth of Starbucks, $5 worth of Target, whereas 5, 10 years ago, that wasn't even an option. So that's why I'm really excited about the space, why I tell people fintech is the tool, the resource going to be able to allow us to scale a lot of this knowledge and put resources into people's hands that they never had before.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because most kids have access to some sort of phone or tablet most of the time, right? Somewhere, one or the other.
Yeah.
Playing online games. Yeah. So tell us about the Berryville. Like, how is the overall functionality of it?
Yeah, we got some great feedback from the book. Folks loved the fact that we were helping parents through this book start the conversation about, hey, look, once you get money in your hand, let's put a budget together. Let's look at your options. 2 very common responses we got back. 1, is there an app? We're working on it. 2, hey, Mac, can you write a book teaching kids about making money? Is there a book coming out that teaches them about that side of it? And so when we looked at designing Berryville, we wanted to provide users of the game the ability to play on both sides of the personal finance fence. What we mean by that is the premise of it's a farming game. It's a berry farming game. And so you inherit your family berry farm. And you have to run the farm and you have to sell your berries. And so that is sharing and showing entrepreneurship,
right?
How money is earned. And then once the money comes in, we're going to have quizzes and quests. And we've actually developed a new way of distributing and teaching financial literacy. We call it a TAP method, where we're able to teach, give all the different quizzes and quests, analyze how this is going and some of the behavioral financial things that we think is going to happen in this game. But more importantly, is we're going to be able to track the progress of the game player over time. A lot of people, they think financial literacy is like a one and done. Hey, here's a book.
Right.
Learn about money. It's not. It's a continual, habitual process. And we want to be able to show that by playing this game, by learning about these different processes and these different functions of money and how to put all stuff together, these young people are going to do a lot better later on in life because they had that exposure. Yeah,
absolutely. So ultimately, there'll be different levels so that you can continue to remain engaged.
It's a full ecosystem, actually. It's so we're going to allow for folks to have their own berry farm. We're going to have a computer-based sort of a challenge. We're going to eventually have a full community, because there's three markets we're really looking to engage with this platform. First is B2C. If you have a child and they're playing a bunch of games on their phone. Hey, why not play this game that actually teaches you about, money? And so that's going to be available. We're going to have an individual, you go online and you can get on Apple or you can get on Android. The second channel is schools. We've had so much response from teachers who want to be able to teach this at this level, but they don't have a consistent sort of platform to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. So if a teacher is in Florida, California, Maryland, New York, wherever, they're going to be able to use our Berryville game to be able to start that the financial education process. And the third is financial institutions. We're talking to several of them now, talking to banks who are interested in utilizing our app for their CRA, Community Reinvestment Act programs. We're talking to some fintech companies. We're talking to a lot because they're looking at it like, oh, wait. You're building something to start that conversation and the education process as early as age 5? Like, yeah. And we're going to be able to look at the how well they've progressed over time. Yeah, that's powerful. That data is very powerful. So those are really the 3 markets we're looking to engage.
That's amazing. I mean, that's just, to me, is like looking at your trajectory and how if somebody told you, like, when you first got started, that one day you'll be creating this thing that's going to have such a ripple effect. What would you have said? Like, would you?
We talked before we started recording. Like, I wrote this book, Louis, because one of my clients, we had young kids, and she was like, "I want our kids to be able to have, a better awareness of their money." And so this literally was a favor to a client years ago that has taken on an amazing life of its own, and I'm really blessed to have. I mean, last year when we were doing this whole e-money podcast, having folks and friends like you that are specialists in this area, all of these things have come about from a little book. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I'm so excited about it. What is your ultimate vision? Let's say if resources were unlimited to you, like, what do you envision just getting accomplished in general as far as like your impact in the overall financial literacy space?
I don't know if you've heard of the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. I don't know if you've heard of that concept.
Oh, no, I have not. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So your BHAG is your just like ridiculous, like really, like, and so for a lot of companies or a lot of leaders, you talk about a BHAG, like what's this like ridiculously outlandish goal? And our BHAG is for every child in the world to learn about money through the 4 money bears.
Got it.
So when I mentioned earlier that we have book sales all across the world, the crazy thing is we haven't translated the book. The book's in English.
Oh, wow.
So we haven't even done a Spanish version, French, Indian, but financial literacy or illiteracy is not a U.S. thing. It's a global issue.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. So that's our goal. At some point in time, I want to be able to jump on a plane and fly with my family to the Emirates or India or Switzerland or Australia and represent early childhood financial literacy.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think it's so needed too. I mean, I know some local governments are starting to incorporate some requirements of some sort for like high school students and whatnot, and I think there's only, maybe 20 something states that have some sort of curriculum currently. 23.
So Florida was the most recent one to be in the news. So there are 23 states that offer / require some sort of financial literacy by high school, typically
right.
Senior high school. And Florida recently made some news because our state passed legislation where starting the 2023-2024 school year, you must take a half credit course to graduate. So it's not an option. You got to take it.
Gotcha.
And, kudos to legislation. What a lot of people don't realize, though, about that, Louis, is that took 7 years to get through legislation. It didn't happen overnight. It took time. Yeah. But here's the other crazy thing. There's a Cambridge study that came out that says that a child's connectivity with money starts by age 7. So if a child's connectivity with money starts by age 7, but you're not getting any courses until you're 17, typically your senior year in high school, that's 10 years worth of misinformation or no information if you don't happen to live in one of those states when it comes to money. So that's why we're really big on starting the conversation, the awareness as early as possible to be able to give kids, that runway, that years of putting money into the stock market and owning equities and having that business entrepreneurship mindset to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Because that can have lifelong changes. I remember, I came here from the Dominican Republic when I was 11, and I grew up in New York City. And my parents, they worked very hard, but they never had jobs that offered any type of benefit, no 401ks. So the conversation in my household, I never heard the word stock, financial planner or advisor, bonds, insurance. There was nobody ever had life insurance that I ever knew. Nobody inherited anything in terms of generational wealth. I often tell people, I remember the biggest success story that I recall was my grandfather. When he died, he left enough money to pay for his own funeral. And because this was before GoFundMe, right? People were literally going around just asking for help sometimes to help bury their loved one, right? So I remember he went above and beyond to make sure that when he passed, nobody was left indebted, right? But that was it. It wasn't
he wasn't passing on $1.50 DuPont stock.
Right, exactly. There was no trust. There was no will. And it was wow. So I thought about that. I was it seems to me everyone in this generation kind of just starts from scratch all over again, with nothing to kickstart them. And I remember I was working in a mailroom when I was going to college, and I remember. Even then, I was almost about to graduate, right? One of the lawyers gives me this fax to send over, and he said, "Oh, could you send this over to my stockbroker because I got to make some transactions for my children's account?" That was a foreign language to me. I'm his kids, they have stock already? I'm not even graduated. They were younger than me, and I'm it was so foreign to me, man. It's another world, and even financial planning itself, it was not offered as a major in my school. I had no idea what a financial planner did. At all, right? Mm-hmm. And it took me a while, even after working for one, to actually grasp the concept. So what you're doing is just so important and amazing, because grabbing somebody at such an early age to kind of say, here are your other options and actionable steps that you can take to make it better. I mean, and the fact that it's it's in a digital form where all the kids are usually all up on anyway, right?
Meet them where they are.
Yeah,
we have to and think about this, Louis, and I cannot wait for this platform to get out there so that you and I can talk offline about some of the things you're doing with BLX. But one of the offshoots that we were hoping to have by writing this book and developing this app, our industry, the CFP financial advisor industry, is aging out. Yes. I think I heard at some CFP meeting that there are more CFPs over the age of 70 than they are under the age of 30 or something like that.
I just looked those up because I was doing a diversity and inclusion module for NAPFA. And yeah, absolutely right. There are more CFP certificates over the age of 70 than there are under the age of 30. It's insane.
It's insane. So think about it. The reason why, when you were growing up, when I was growing up, if we told our mom and dad we wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, or if you dealt with numbers, a CPA or an engineer, that was good. But you went to mom and dad and say, I want to be a financial advisor, financial planner. What is that? So imagine now, if you are more aware of your money because you understand what to do with your money, you're not just helping yourself, but you're also seeing a potential career path for yourself and folks in your community to help people deal with their money. And doesn't matter. I tell people all the time, people care what you look like. People care what you sound like. People care where you're from. Money doesn't. Money's just a tool, brother. It's just a tool. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, orange, purple. It's a tool. And so the more you are familiar with how to utilize that tool at an early age, the better you'll be off later. And within your community, you can become that financial advisor, that financial planner, because you realize how important it is.
Yeah, super important. Another quick story. I remember when I was growing up in New York City, my parents got jobs, right? And they didn't even have direct deposit. Like they always got an actual check. Mm-hmm. And they had to go to a check cashing place. And those places charge, a couple of bucks, but it was percentage-wise, it was pretty big, Mm-hmm. So they had to pay to cash their checks, number one. And then I remember my parents always paid all their bills like in person as well. A lot of the times through the check cashing place, like you can go pay your electric bill. And there were so many fees.
Fees on top of that.
Top of that, right? And eventually I was like, Mom, how come you don't just have a checking account and get direct deposit? Because, I eventually learned that, right? But it sounds super basic. But to them was like, what do you mean? And so finally, like we set them up, and I was able to like log into like their Verizon bill and pay that online. And it was like, you don't have to pay all these fees, But
it's awareness, it's awareness, it's access. And that's why, when earlier you mentioned the wealth gap and the ability to close that, I think education is probably the best way to do it. But that education has to be accessible to as many people as possible. It's hard, as cool and as great as everyone says the book is, we're thankful for it, but it's hard to scale a book.
Yeah.
It's very hard to scale a book. A game, we can scale that pretty easily. We can get that out to communities in need. We can get that out to people who are looking for it. And we can get it in the hands of resources that are trying to really promote financial literacy. So that's why that's what FUNancial Tech's about. We're building the 4 Money Bears Berryville, and we're working on some other projects, a rebrand of Motivate Your Money. We're developing a multimedia financial education platform because the great thing about social media is that there's a bunch of information out there. The bad thing about social media is that there's a whole lot of information out there, and it may not necessarily be right or correct or on point or germane.
Absolutely, man. I so love what you're doing. Yeah, thank you for doing that. I feel like you're going to have such a great impact beyond just, what you even thought possible at the beginning, right? In the meantime, how can people get in touch, learn more about the book if they want to buy the 4 Money Bears or Motivate Your Money, or just keep up with what FUNancial Tech is doing right now? Any particular social media platforms or website that you'd like to share? I'm going to put them in the show notes as well.
Thank you. Yeah. So for the 4 Money Bears book, if you go to www.the4THEFOUR, it's spelled out MONEYBEARS. I've had folks actually put the number 4 in there. So gotcha. That's where you can find out information about the book. Actually, today, I'm not sure when this is going to be released to the masses, but tomorrow is our last day for our Kickstarter campaign to raise funds and awareness for the app that we're developing. We have that go for the month of April. That's going to be cool. The Motivate Your Money book, go to motivateyourmoney.com. And if you want to learn about what we're doing at FUNancial Tech, and I believe we actually have the eMoney webinar on the website, by the way.
Nice.
On our FUNancial Tech website, where you and some of your co-founders of BLX participated. You can go to www.funlittech.com. And if you're on LinkedIn hanging out there, you can find me.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll be sure to share a link to all of those things on the show notes. People can just click on them and go just stay in touch. Also, quick question before I let you go. You're in an elevator ride with somebody they hop on. You got 30 seconds. After that ride, they don't know who you are. They can't look you up. What are some things that you would like to some Mcnuggets that you like to say, hey, listen, if this is the only time we have, this is what I'd like to share with you.
Yeah. There's a couple of them. The one that I like a lot, and I would share with my clients, is you can't eat tomorrow what you didn't plant yesterday. Can't tell you how many times, brother, and you've probably heard it too. You sit down with people and they say, man, I wish I invested more. I wish I started earlier. I wish I did. And so you can't come into retirement 5 years and be like, I plan to have this, but you didn't do what you needed to do in years past. That's one. The second one, when it comes to managing money, I say that people, one of the issues I think that we have as a society when it comes to money is that people focus on the fruits and not the roots. What I mean by that is everyone's looking at the bright and shiny and all the cool things that money can do for you and all the fruits of the money tree. but not really focus on the roots of the tree, which is education, which is process, which is budgeting, which is the hard work that allows you to have, a prosperous garden over time, and not something that won't last very long. So those are the two things I would share with the two Mcnuggets I would share with somebody, is to focus on the fruits, not the roots so much, and start the process early.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much, Mac. This has been an absolute pleasure. Congrats. I know that, you did really well with the Kickstarter, and I'm sure that you're going to continue to do so with the rest of the project. So I can't wait to see how everything unfolds. And as always, I'm here to support in any possible way, just spreading the word and just letting folks know that this exists, So thank you so much for everything you do. And we're just excited to see where this goes.
Man, thank you, brother. Again, love what you're doing, love what your team's doing. And as I like to say, the financial life journey is a long one, and it's got ups, it's got downs. But having good guidance, having someone like yourself, having advisors to be able to turn to that can help you along that journey is a great benefit, and the journey continues.
The journey continues. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And just be on the lookout for this episode on mywaytowealth.com and available on all major podcasting platforms, as well as we're actually going to put the video up for this one. So if you're listening and you want to see Mac and I go at it, go to onmywaytowealth.com, and then there's a link there for the YouTube channel. So thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.